is up everybody, Matt Batman here with another movie review, and today I'm gonna be reviewing Captain America Civil War. So sorry about having to start up the review with this awesome Spider-Man mask that I have. I just had to use it because this movie also has one of my favorite characters, as you can tell, showing up in the movie, and I'm sure everyone else was pretty hyped about him. But we gotta talk about the main story of this Captain America Civil War movie. Captain America Civil War is the third movie in the Captain America solo movies, and the first movie in the third phase of Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this movie is based on the Civil War comic book story about how a Superhero Registration Act is put into effect after a big incident involving superheroes, which results in the loss of many civilian lives. And so the movie follows this pretty loosely, where after an incident involving the Avengers results in a lot of civilians losing their lives, and also just the world pretty much getting very agitated over the collateral damage that results in any instance that involves the Avengers, like the incident in New York from the first movie, or the incident in Captain America's The Winter Soldier in Washington, or even the incident with Sokovia in Avengers Age of Ultron. So now with this one, this is like the big turning point. Everyone is just fed up, and now the Avengers have to be held accountable. So this pretty much divides the team into two halves, where people are on Tony's side and they're wanting to sign up with the Sokovia Accords, or they are on Captain America's side, where they are against it and do not want to register and want to be more independent so that they can operate outside of the law. Now in the comic book, I was totally Team Captain America, and in this movie I was also Team Captain America as well, because I totally agree with his ideology, where the world does need the Avengers and how they need to operate outside of the law, and that means having to not sign with the Sokovia Accords. And what I like about this movie is that it seems like Tony is the big antagonist, because he opposes Captain America, and he goes to some pretty big lengths in trying to secure those who haven't signed the Accords. Now a lot of the actors who return in this movie, most especially the characters who are the new Avengers after the ending of Avengers Age of Ultron, they are really awesome in this. I like how it feels very tactical, and it's really, and the action scenes are so awesome to see. Very well choreographed, especially in the fights, and the action is just so intense. It's definitely one of the strongest points of this movie, and probably what makes this the most action-packed movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And the story also brings back Bucky, who is continuously on the run but forced back into the spotlight after an incident that frames him for his involvement. And surprisingly though, it feels like the focus of the Sokovia Accords starts to lose its focus. Now I was a little saddened though that it felt like the movie didn't feel like it was really driven by the Sokovia Accords. Let me actually say right now that this is going to be somewhat of a spoiler review, because I will mention some things that I maybe didn't really enjoy that much, because they did kind of put a spin on it. Now for this movie, they do introduce a villain called Zemo. Now Zemo is actually like a pretty big factor of the story in this. He's actually a big motivation for the story, and I won't say how, and I won't say what he does, but I will say that a lot of the reasons for the Sokovia Accords and for Bucky being on the run is mostly because of him, and the main reason for him in the end is pretty well explained, and I like how it shows how he's a very scheming and very cunning villain. But the one thing that I was saddened about is that unfortunately it doesn't really follow the Civil War comic, where it doesn't have a main villain, where it's just two sides opposing each other because they really do not agree on this Superhero Registration Act. But in this Sokovia Accords, it feels like there is something else happening in the background that is really forcing these heroes to fight. And so it was just a bummer, because I was really hoping for this movie to not have like a villain, where it's just heroes going against each other because they just have completely different ideologies. And sadly, it even feels like the Sokovia Accords just totally didn't feel like they were the main focus by the end of the movie, especially during the main conflict where that big Iron Man and Captain America fight comes in. Okay, I'll just get right into the spoilers. So it's basically just Captain America protecting Bucky, because Iron Man has just found out that Bucky was the reason that Iron Man's parents were killed. Now they did show this in Captain America The Winter Soldier, and I like how it was very it wasn't like a very big focus, but they did kind of like save it for later, which is really put into full play. So yeah, I guess that my main issue for the story is how the Sokovia Accords just kind of slowly and then suddenly just start to fall out of focus, and then all of a sudden you have this main conflict between Iron Man, Captain America, and Bucky happening. So sure, it plays into Zemo's main motive, but it just feels like a little too much of a sudden shift, especially with like the whole conflict with the Accords almost instantly ending right then and there. So yeah, that was a little issue I had. Spider-Man finally appearing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I am so glad he's finally in this, and I also love the performance by Tom Holland. Now, he didn't play a very, very big role, but what I saw in his performance, I really enjoyed. He plays a really good young Peter Parker who's in the first 6 months of being Spider-Man, and seeing that new suit was just so awesome. And I love how the goggles, how it goes small and big, and how it comes into play, and the reason for that, it all just works very well. And his banter, like his comedy, his witty jokes, they're all just amazing. It really does feel even more like Spider-Man to me. I guess because, seeing him just interact with all these other heroes is like a real dream come true. So again, back to my comparison between the comic books and the movies, I feel like, I guess I was just a little saddened that at the end, Captain America he didn't really learn any lesson. It was just more about him being in the right. But what I liked about Civil War is that in the end, he looked around at the final battle and he realized that maybe this superhero registration act could actually be of use, and that he actually does feel guilty for what he's done and everything that has happened, and he actually turned himself in the comic book. And I like how it really showed that he's willing to accept that he was wrong and that he's willing to face judgment. But for this one, he's pretty much just at the end, I won't say what happened, but he's kind of gonna just do his own thing. That's the one thing I was kind of saddened by, and I guess I was just hyping this too much because I was expecting too much, because I really love the Civil War comic. But overall, the movie was still good, especially when it stands on its own and it's not trying to be too much of the comic. But again, there's just little things like the Sokovia Accords falling out of focus in the story. Overall, for my review of Captain America Civil War, I gotta give this movie a 4 out of 5. I do love all the actors that return. Everyone does a great job in their roles. Spider-Man does a great first appearance in this movie, and I can't wait for his solo movie, Spider-Man Homecoming. The music was good, the action was great. I hope you guys enjoy it, and take care. Later.